It's all about this huge new double kidney in the new BMW series facelift. Indeed, it is a facelift. There's a lot of time to discuss it here on Autogefuehl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars with Thomas. Because we'll give you a full tour, the exterior, interior and the driving experience of the BMW 7 Series. And we'll also tell you something more, of course, about the recent changes. Let's enjoy this together. Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go. Indeed, when you see this one here for the very first time, and especially on the first pictures or so, it looks so massive, and it is massive, this new double kidney. However, if you see it here in real terms, then you somehow get used to it, and then you see it still does somehow fit to the vehicle. They have not only put the double kidney bigger, but also the whole front grille is 5 centimeters higher, by the way, that the proportions do work. And you can see here this, this falling structure inside those fins. It also matches directly the line of those headlamps that come with adaptive LED standard and optional with this BMW laser light, then with 600 meters high beam range or limited 300 meters in the US due to regulations. And they also changed the diameter of the BMW logo there on the front, that it also fits again to the bigger front kidney. Yeah, let's discuss it again. What side are you on? Love or hate for this biggest ever BMW double kidney? Well, the X7 is also a very big one. This is the long wheelbase version, the G12 with 5 meters 24, 206 inches or 17 foot 2. The internal code G11 stands for the short wheelbase version, that then would be 5 inch shorter or 14 centimeters shorter. This long wheelbase version is the standard version for the 7 Series for the USA. We have 20 inch rims. Those ones are the biggest ones that are available. Pretty massive, but they definitely fit to the vehicle. If you want a little bit more comfort, you can also go for a little bit smaller rims. But then again, this car features air suspension as standard, so that does even out that pretty much. This so-called air breather here, this is not just a design element right there. This is really a gap that leads the airstream from the wheel arches through here for better wind efficiency. Sometimes they are just fake, sometimes they have a function. It depends on the model right there. And then we have rather a sculptural round shape right there at the dropping line, alongside integrated in the door handles, and a classic sedan shape right there. Still the very classic layout, and you can also see the long wheelbase version that the rear door is just longer because of the increased wheelbase, and then you have more space on the inside. We'll soon show you that. As for the facelift, they did not really change anything or much right here in the side profile. It's really more about the front that it was changed visually. Slight change to the tail lamps right there, and they're very sculptural, also with a 3D effect. They really stand out just a little bit. And a chrome strip right across the vehicle. The 750 Li, the L stands again for the long wheelbase version. Then in the lower part, those exhaust tips here, the outer part is just cosmetic. Real exhaust are on the inside. And we'll soon also on the interior see how this 530 liters of boot capacity will play out. This one here, the normal unchanged one. The plug-in hybrid will have a little bit less. And technology-wise, first of all, the chassis is a mix of steel, aluminum and carbon fiber, and just about 1,800 kilograms in weight with the smallest engine. So in this segment, pretty lightweight, but still, of course, in most cases, a heavy 2-ton car overall. Technology-wise, you can also get this 7 Series with the rear axle steering that helps to reduce the turning circle, and also with the anti-tilt control, so this reduces the body roll. So when you put those technologies inside, then it feels a little bit lighter and smaller to drive.
The advantage of this big computer, like here I always call it that way, you could see if the windows are closed, if the doors are closed and so on, the range. But I always also prefer the slimmer one that is also available or is also coming as a secondary key when you pick the big one. So keyless entry, of course, also available. Put your finger here to close it, put your hand in there to open, and solid door closing sound. And there should also be a soft close. There we go. This is also an option. Well, you don't have to go for it, but it's surely very nice. Then there are always wood in the 7 Series, also standard. This one here has different trims available. This one here is a glossy one. And then also soft touch materials all over the place at the inside of the doors. Even the lower part is not entirely hard plastic, but I think we can also expect it for around 100k in price. The door pockets are quite slim, and then the rest of the there we go. With the door pockets for smaller bottles, it does actually fit. Other than that, it gets quite tricky. Then I really like those entry caps here, and you can see they are also symmetrical here. Those two parts, nicely done. The car comes with a lot of standard equipment, the big infotainment system, GPS, seat heating, 2-zone AC, and so on. But again, I think we can expect that for the price. The steering wheel also comes with a heated steering wheel option. There's a separate button then for that. It has a nice smooth layout also with an elegant design. The seats here are with some quilted design all over the place. There are also different trims and colors available. Sadly, they do not offer any animal skin alternative yet for the 7 Series. I think they have to work on that. But the seat form is quite comfortable. I'll also take a seat right there. It is a relatively low sitting classic sedan, but you still have a great comfortable seating position. If I rate those other competitor sedans as for the seating comfort, they're all on a high level there. At the moment, as for the ergonomics, I prefer it in the Audi A6 and in the Audi A8. They have a good new seat layout, which I think is a little bit more suitable to the body, but of course it always depends on personal preference. But you still, of course, have a lot of comfort here too. If I put the seat in the lowest position, this one here is the one with the panoramic roof with a nice effect. I'll soon show you that. Then still with the 1m86 or 6'1", leaves some headroom right there. Steering wheel can be controlled electronically, right there. And a lot of electric seat controls already in the front. Just the front part of the seats, if you have some longer legs. Then this one is very interesting. It's not only that you can change the whole back part of the seat. This part here just controls the upper part of the back part of the seat. So just this area here, depending on your spinal position. And well, for me, it's most of the time all the way back there again. So, this is the driver's seat. We'll check out the cockpit, and then soon, of course, will be even more important with the long wheelbase version we have here today. What about the rear seats? interior overview. You have this infotainment screen in 10.25 inch and digital instruments in 12.3 inch. Always comes like this. And again, you see this symmetric design. You've also seen it, the door entry caps. I really like that this one mirrors the lower part right there, and it forms one unit right there. Interesting also as for the climate unit, it is somehow digital. You have those knobs still, and it's very, good to control. Also a pretty thick knob still for today's cars, but while driving it's so easy to control that then. And then you have those screens. They look pretty fancy also for the seat heating and the seat cooling, which can be activated at the same time for a wet winter day, for example. Oh, there's also this perfume button for the ionization. Then first of all ionization, and then you can add some perfume here if you like, but I rather like to keep it clean in the interior also as for the scent. Interesting also that you have those capacitive buttons for those vents here right there. They can put warmer or colder individually. If you may want your feet a little bit colder, but then on the top part here for your hands a little bit warmer, that would be possible. Then again, this glossy wood surface, I rather prefer some matte wood. Or would you rather go for this one? Please tell me in the comments. You see some of the LED lighting already here, but we also did some night shots in our studio shooting. There you can see it even better because it's bright day at the moment. And the steering wheel has actually a decent size, so it is not small at all. I really like those matte accentuations here as for the buttons, and they all feel very good in the build quality. Right side you activate the voice activation, left side rather for cruise control and assistance systems. And as for the voice activation, it also has some new functions now. Let me just activate it with, "Hey BMW, activate well-being mode." Let's see if it does it.
With pleasure,
There it is.
I have activated the mode.
So now we're in the well-being mode, and what happens here, so they have set some new themes, and then the ambient lighting is changed to a more warmer tone. The temperature is being raised, seat heating activated, the sun protection in the rear. Of course, when the car is running, then that everything is work. Sun protection goes, that the rear passengers have more protection against the sun, and also the seat massage is being activated. I think it's a really interesting idea. For example, when you start, you drive at home or something. And I really like the voice activation. You can use it for the temperature. For example, "Hey BMW, set temperature to 23 degrees.
Function available again when vehicle ready to drive.
Okay, so that works only when obviously the vehicle is running, but then the temperature would be set to 23 degrees. And of course for GPS input, "Hey BMW, drive me to Lisbon. Hey BMW." So yeah, sometimes it does not work, but then you can always also use the button in the steering wheel. "Drive me to Lisbon."
Perfect. Lisbon is our next destination.
And I really like to use
Please
it.
make a U-turn if possible.
I really like to use it for the GPS input here. We're now going to Lisbon right there. I really like to use it for the GPS input. It makes things so much easier than typing in the address and so on. So I've been using it all over the place. Meanwhile, both in the BMW and in the Mercedes, and in those two, the voice recognition so far is the best. And I can just say really makes your life easier, even though that sometimes you have to repeat something with your voice, but it's again still faster than typing in individual letters. And you not only use the infotainment screen with the central knob controller, you can also use it via touch. It's very responsive, very fast, and the visualization is great. Connection for the phone, either via Bluetooth or then with Apple CarPlay. That one then is wireless, no Android Auto support yet. And I always like the visualizations they have here also when you can get the vehicle status. There's also the way for the experience mode over the menu and so on. I think it's a nice integration. It stands out here right there, but the infotainment system you get along with very well. Lower middle console here in the front. Slide all the way open. This one is the inductive charging pad. Then an old USB supply in the front, next to adaptive cup holders and the 12-volt power supply, and you slide it back in 2 steps here. I'm not sure. Well, the reason for that is that you, for example, can leave just open like this, but I'm not sure. I would just prefer like a one-step slider, I think. Then shifting knob, it's good to see a classic one here again, because like in the X7, X5, in the 8 series, we've all seen now this crystal shifting lever, which is most of the time optional. But here this one is the rather, classic open, a little bit higher there too. The driving modes on the left side. Also there's a separate camera button. I will soon show the camera image also again in the infotainment screen, because it's always interesting. And then as it has an air suspension as standard, there's an air suspension button that you can actually change the height of the vehicle if you seeking to put a little bit higher in front of a ramp or something. On the right side, this classic knob to turn and press if you don't want to use the touch function, for example, while driving. Very nicely done is this armrest that opens in a split way like this, and then they have a USB-C support right there. So they have a mix now of USB-A and USB-C. Yeah, I mean, why not going for this mixture? Then you have the choice. So here we go with the rear view camera. If you put in reverse gear, then you can see this is the normal rear view camera, and right next to it is the drone view from above. If you hit the camera button, you can also switch that around, so the rear view camera all over the place, or then back to this one again. Interesting is also the so-called reversing assistant. When you're, for example, going with your big vehicle in, maybe like a parking garage, and you see, oh, it doesn't fit, then you can go for the reversing assistant, and then it helps you basically to drive back automatically again the same way you entered, so you can just retry again. Yeah, that's the thing, when the individual spots are too narrow for that vehicle. And here also 3D visualization that you can see, oh, do I damage those precious 20-inch rims? Now with those digital instruments, Jonas has the pressure to bring it alive, and then you can see that the revs go counterclockwise. Whoa, for this V8. And in the middle part you can see the GPS view, on the right side the speed. And you can also have, so for example, some assistance system information right there. When you see here the assistant driving mode, this is very interesting, keeps you in the lane, very flawless system, pretty cool. And if you wonder what that is, sometimes on camera you even see those, those red dots in there. You can't see them with your own eyes. Those will actually check you out if you're still awake, and then recommend this. Saying that when the car says, "Oh, please take a coffee break" or something. So you're being scanned all the time. Scary, ain't that? It's good that I have a destination input at the moment, because that also shows us that in the head-up display you can not only see the current speed or the allowed speed, but also some GPS information. And the BMW head-up displays are among the best in business at the moment, because they are very, very clear to read, and I'm using it all the time now, hardly ever looking again at the instruments, just straight on the road together with the head-up display. So what's happening in this top area here? First of all, my favorite BMW wing lights at the top part right there. Still like this feature. And then there's a nice fabric cover here for the panoramic roof in the front. You can also open that, and you maybe see those small dots, and it's also better visible in the studio episode, because those ones are illuminated from the side, and then those dots are illuminated at night and form a star ceiling, so to say. But you can also open it to leave a little bit more light in. And there's also a second split, because we have a second panoramic roof there in the rear. You can see at the moment it's half opened, because I wanted to show you that you can also open and close it. It's better to control this one than from the rear. We'll soon do that when we check our executive test. I'm a very important businessman. That's why I'm here. So let's begin here with the top roof. There we go, to open it. It has the same illumination than in the front. So at night there goes the LED light from the side, and then will illuminate those small dots. That's very beautiful. And then I've set this co-driver seat at the moment to the driver's seat length. So this is the legroom you still have when tall people are sitting in the front. This one, however, is still the long wheelbase version. Our friends in the US will always get this one. In Europe, the standard 7 Series is the short wheelbase version that will then have like a legroom just like this. So yeah, again, the package is bad in this vehicle. So considering the
length of the vehicle, it's not so much legroom you have, but of course in a long wheelbase version, there's ample of legroom. There is also, we've shown you that in our studio episode, this option that you have this footrest here for this seat. It's also a cool executive package. I can show that in the studio episode. I'll link that. And I can also change the seat, the front seat from here. So the maximum I can do here, for example, the BMW assistant was activated by something I said. So let's get it all the way in the front. So I have the maximum amount of space. Rear view entertainment system, by the way, here you can follow the stuff from the vehicle. You can also zoom in and out in the map. That's possible. And you can also adjust it here just a little bit. There's really a lot to discover here, but let's start a little bit with the seating position, because you can also change that here electrically. There are different seat options available here also for the rear. You can start just with a bench that goes all the way through, then a bench, 3 seats with electric support, then this single seating here, and then the top option would be the single seating with this whole middle console electric support. So 4 options overall. Oh, now I have to change back again to my seat. So I can, for example, put it a little bit higher and more forward. So I rather go to this sleeping position. It all takes a while, but I think when you are on a very long motorway ride, you also have the time for that. Then you can relax. This microfiber pillow here is really cool, so that's very comfortable, and I wonder why they haven't put more microfiber in here, because it's really, the most comfortable, most important part for the head is it has a reason why it's from microfiber. It's really relaxing, really cool. However, I still have to say, if we compare nowadays SUVs, for example, like a BMW X7, you have a rather upright seating position there, and especially with those captain seats set up, we've shown it in the recent X7 review, I found those higher SUV seating position in the rear more comfortable than in those classic sedans. So yes, of course, you still get a very executive feeling when sitting here and being shuttled, and it's also very comfortable. But on a logical and practical level, those rear SUV seating positions are somehow more fitting to the human body. I think we can definitely say that. Well, then let's put it a little bit more like this again. You can also put it more upright if you rather want to, for example, start working or so. And then there's also this split here where I can put out the table like this. For example, I could be starting editing some reviews or something. Well, Jonas does that today, so heads off again to Jonas. But just some work right there with your own devices, that would be possible. There's another 12-volt supply hidden in there, by the way. Then there's an additional control here. So you can leave it in there like this and do the same things all over again, or also change the climate comfort. But you can also put it out like this. There's also this small device that helps you getting it out, and then you can also change the interior lighting here with the ambient light and so on, change the color of the ambient light. There's, by the way, also this new massive interior light. It's only activated at night, so you can hardly see it right now. I wonder, that should be very bright, and also while driving. Bowers & Wilkins with a smooth surface here. Really good sound system, by the way. It gives you very nice, decent 3D sound. I always like to adjust it in a way that it's, also when I'm sitting in the front, that the sound is a little bit more coming from behind, so it gives an even better 3D surround effect. That would be, my sound tip for today. And then when you open this part here, it can only be a normal cubby hole, but it can also be a fridge or champagne cooler. But then half of the trunk is being blocked, so you have to decide what's more important to you. There's still more to come, because we have this middle console here left, and when you slide this one open, there are more cup holders, 12-volt power supply, and then there's this, more easy kept climate unit. I think that's also a good control, so to change the temperature right there, and also for the seat heating and seat cooling in the rear, that is also an option. And last but not least, Hugh Jones can show that on his side is also activated at the moment. The seat massage function, there's the button right there. and then you can also enjoy the seat massage. As for the seat massages, I think at the moment the ones that Mercedes is offering is a little bit top, more top notch than Audi and BMW. Because Mercedes is working with a little bit more single individual dots, it feels more, like they use more small points to get the pressure right there. It's also pretty cool here, and I really enjoy it. Also different functions available, different programs. You can set it all also in the infotainment system. So a lot of this to discover here, and especially worthwhile in the long wheelbase version. Again, for this, how you can put your feet on there, check out our linked studio episode, but already here we can do a lot. There's one more thing I can still show you, and that is about the shades. And it's not only possible to show you that in the top there, but also the side shades. There's the control unit here at the inside of the doors. And then, for example, you can raise the shade right there. And the interesting thing is, it's not only there, but I can also do it at my side. And the very small window part right there, I think it's more practical when Jonas shows you that on his side. There we go, the last part, this one also is covered. This really attention to detail, very nicely done. And last but not least, and I promise this is the last point here for today for the rear. There we go, with the rear sunshade. But, oh come on, one more. And that is the headroom. And you see, it comes quite close with my size here in the rear, but it still exactly works. But if you're 190 or 6'2", then, if you're then, a big executive boss, you should probably then head over to the X7. Well, one of those disadvantages of those luxury sedans is they always have somehow limited trunk space, and especially as for loading in and out, the length is actually quite decent. So if I take it here, it's about 1 meters and 13, but the width is really, when you just take the very flat bottom area here, then it's even less than 80 centimeters right there. It's a little bit more than 80 centimeters in the rear. And then you just have those holes here, right and left, where you can load things in a little bit better. And the height here is about 45 centimeters. And let me just put in also a backpack for you, that you can see the dimensions a little bit better when something is right in here. So height-wise, that does still fit. You can put everything in there you need, clearly. But of course, the height is somewhat limited. That you can, of course, put things way in there. That does work. If you would have the fridge in there, I think that's also in our studio episode, that it would be going like this here and would almost take half of the trunk. So that's not recommended if you want to carry some luggage. And if you go for the plug-in hybrid, you will be limited in height right there. It will add like a step here for the battery placement and so on. So you're very limited even then in the height. But as it is right there, if you go to the airport or so, or even on a longer journey, you can store all your luggage. You have to, do some little Tetris game, for example, from time to time, but you can still store everything. So considering it's actually a big luxury sedan, of course, there's still enough room left overall then. So this one here is still one of the very rare cars that is left that is almost offering all kinds of engines you can actually get: petrol, diesel, plug-in hybrid, and in all cylinder specs. So 12-cylinder, 8-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 4-cylinder. Let me start at the very high spec. There is a 6.6 liter 12-cylinder in the M760i. So that one in most cylinder spec with 6 or 10 horsepower still in the US. In other markets, it's also been tuned down to 585 horsepower due to emissions regulations, but the US spec is still the same. Then this one here today is the 4.4 liter V8, 530 horsepower, 3.9 seconds is the acceleration figure to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. I've been using this here in the X7, in the X5, in the 8 Series Coupe, in the 8 Series Convertible. And well, so far, in those SUVs, consumption was always about like 14 liters on 100 kilometers. And
That's about 17 mpg US, 20 mpg UK. So yes, it does consume a lot of fuel. You just have to be aware of that. Those 6 cylinders are more fuel saving, because also for the 7 Series you can get the 3-liter inline 6-cylinder single turbo 340 horsepower. That is then the 740i. Again, this one here, the V8 750i, 740i, then the 6-cylinder. And with the 6-cylinder petrol engine, had about 9 liters on 100 kilometers consumption here with the 7 Series. So that's about 20 mpg US then. So a little bit better, I think, considering the size of the car, you can also live with that. Well, and then there's also bigger news as for the plug-in hybrid. So whereas this one is still the classic deal, I can tell you also something more about the plug-in hybrid, because the big news there is the 745e. That one then is still the 3-liter 6-cylinder you used in the 740i. Before it was with the 2-liter 4-cylinder. So now the plug-in hybrid changed to the 3-liter 6-cylinder. Then in the plug-in hybrid, 394 horsepower system power output and 50 kilometers of pure electric range. I'll soon also show you more about that. And last but not least, a rear-wheel driven 730i is available in some markets, 2-liter 4-cylinder petrol engine. And then there are also the diesels in the horsepower spec of 265, 320 or 400 horsepower. That is in the 730D, 740D or 750D. And that is all the 3-liter inline 6-cylinder diesel. And that one is also very good as for the consumption. It's one of the most efficient diesel engines out there, although it's a very big one. But maybe that's also something, because it's not going for the downsizing way. So especially if you think about European fuel prices, then this BMW diesel still makes sense. And they have the NOx clearing also with the SCR system.
And now a look at the plug-in hybrid. As I said, now a 6-cylinder instead of a 4-cylinder. You can also see it in this visual graphic right there. All the orange components you see in the background are the ones that belong to the electric drive system. Here the 745e, 394 horsepower output from a total system and 50 kilometers of pure electric range. And that's also quite realistic. The battery is at 10.4 kilowatt hours, and we can recharge normal AC here at the right side with 3.6 kilowatt. That is not too much. I have to use the key first. Here, by the way, on the key, it's hard to see it now in the sunlight, but on the key you can also see not only the petrol range but also the electric range. You can see both at the moment at 39 kilometers left. So now I'll open it again, and then we can also open this box. They will recharge it again, 3.6 kilowatt, and it takes about 4 hours then to recharge it completely. But again, your plug-in hybrid, when you plug it in overnight or so, it's full the next day anyway. And now this 745 LE, the plug-in hybrid with a trunk, well, that is the limitation. You can see it here. It is limited then in height because the battery is placed right there. And if I put my backpack here in then, so you see it does not fit height-wise. So I need to rearrange it somewhat or slide slide things in which are not that high, lower things. But one thing you can do, this one stays the same, this part. But the front part here, you could put a little bit lower like this. And then, for example, a backpack would also fit in like this. So this is then still possible. It's actually good to have this lower part then. I mean, you can surely live with that if you want to transport some serious luggage. Of course, this is another limitation. You have to think about if that's worth the effort. I mean, you can live with that, as I said. And when you have the charging possibility at home or at work, it might make sense also to go for the plug-in hybrid if you can really commute purely electric. You know, some compromise you still have then. welcome to Thomas's semi-autonomous driving lounge. That's at least how it starts here today. But let's just start this V8. So let's imagine just I'm going into this, we shouldn't imagine it, I'm going into this basement garage. I already activate the camera system. So I see, for example, I have a front camera. I can also, actually I want to see the factory view from above. So I go to reverse gear first, then I see it. So now I go to the normal drive gear again, so I can see left and right and I don't damage those wheels. Those big sedans have the disadvantage that you don't have the best overview of where exactly the wheels are ending. So you have to be aware of that. So now I go into here and first of all is fine. And suddenly, oh, there's a BMW 3 Series blocking my way and there's no way I can turn around. So what do I do now? And put in reverse gear, and it would be quite a hassle to go backwards here out of this basement garage ramp now for me. So, but if I have this option, I can go for the reversing assistant. By the way, you can also see the ambient lighting now a little bit better when it's dark. Reversing assistant. And now the car takes over the steering wheel. Also see those blue LEDs flashing here now. And I just go off the brake a little bit and then I can actually adjust the speed by that. And now the car remembered the last few meters I was going, in here, and steers back the very same way I was going in front. It's a little bit scary. I still watch those wheels at the side and so on, but it works quite flawlessly. It's really amazing. And again, it's definitely easier than you would do it yourself. And I really love those assistance systems that are making your life easier. Not necessarily the ones that making it more complicated sometimes. And here now, I not only let go of the brake, I even accelerate a little bit because we're going up the basement garage ramp backwards. And also showing me 10 meters, 9 meters. So which length of way the car has still stored. And you see all the way. Now end of route will be reached shortly, and I can cancel it before that, or I can just go all the way. That's the way. Now it has stopped. So very interesting, very cool function. And I think this was here the probably the best use case so far for this very assistant system. Again, you can use those camera systems here quite a lot because the car does not offer you the best overview. So going back and forth quite often now. So then let me turn backwards in here. Also can see the assistance line of the rear view camera. So now let's go up here because I want to show you another assistant. So I activate, let me see. Let's go back to the camera mode here. No, reverse. So I activate the park assist. So right there. And now I'll go in here and see what happens because there are some parking spots next to me. There we go. So has a red P symbol. So I click this P symbol, take hands off steering wheel and release the brake. So I now release the brake and then let's see what happens. I'm doing nothing, by the way. I'm not on the brakes. No, not on the throttle. I even do not change the gear. I don't do anything with the steering wheel. Stop it. So I stopped that myself because I didn't want to hit the car. Let the car hit the pavement. See what? Whoa! Seriously? Whoa! So it went on the pavement now. Not sure if that's, I mean, it did work, it was no problem, but not sure if it was intended. But I wouldn't have done it manually, I wouldn't have done that. It's not those systems here. Okay, and I'm not sure how far that would have gone, but wow. So I think it's both, You have to watch it. Some actions like, going off on the pavement, I think it was perfectly safe on the one hand, but I wouldn't have done it manually. I'm not sure, also for, wheels and, sides and stuff, possible damages. But what's really cool is it really helps you a lot to, don't have any stress parking in and out. So the only thing is you have to do to observe it a little bit and stop the car before it would be doing something stupid. But definitely a good help. Again, I wouldn't trust on it 100%, but I think about, like 80% or something, and that's probably good enough. And sometimes maybe you don't feel like going like all the way left and right back again. I think it was a very good live test, so the car would have handled all itself. Maybe I would have trust in the car even a little bit more if we would have done that a couple of times. I have not been using those systems quite often, so I'm still a little bit skeptical about it. But I think it was a good test, but also show that you always have to pay a little bit rest of attention, nevertheless. So, and this air suspension here, by the way, also on those cobblestones is doing a great job. So it's keeping all of the balance, not so much noise coming into the cabin. Also a very beautiful driveway, very fitting to this executive vehicle here, close to Faro and surrounding with a lot of interesting houses as well. I will soon show you that. There's also the 8 Series convertible driving around here. You can also check out the driving review of this on Autogefuehl. So here we go. This one here, the hump in the road, and wow, this air suspension is evening that out really very well. I love that air suspension setup here, even if there are some fierce potholes in the road. I was driving around a little bit, and then I didn't realize there was a pothole, and I said, oh wow, that was a big hole actually, and the air suspension evened it out that well that it didn't really realize how steep it actually was. So that was very well done. So now we go on further, and this V8 gives me a lot of confidence, so I don't have to hammer it all the way. That's not really necessary. Even if you drive it slowly, you feel that there's big displacement. You can just gently play with the throttle, and it's totally fine power-wise. That's, I think, one of the cool things. Then again, the consumption is definitely very high. And again, you have a lot of power, of course, when you really want to have it, when you release all that power. Always comes in now with the all-wheel drive that gives you also better acceleration, and of course a little more traction, especially since they have so much power. This is also the region where it begins with very nice villas and stuff. Most of them I think are just used primarily in summertime and so on, but it's again quite fitting to this very executive car right here. And just cruising here, even in small surroundings, is really very relaxing with the whole car. Again, the air suspension, the great noise insulation, you hear almost nothing from the outside. So this is a very calming and soothing atmosphere and experience. Let's see about this turning circle. This vehicle is also equipped with the rear axle steering. It's a long car with a long wheelbase, so it has some massive turning circles still, but the rear axle steering does even that one out just a little bit. So going right there again. There's a lot of dead ends here, but it's always good to experience that when I turn it around. Wow, those are some very beautiful houses here, and all pretty individual. Oh, by the way, if there's some bumps in the road, you can also check the steering, and in the lower area here, it is a little bit soft, I think, but still in the 7 Series here, it does have some reaction. And then the more you steer it, the more natural the feeling gets, and I think they've overall done a good job with it. You get a good connection with the car overall, and especially also with suspension. And although it's so comfortable and so soft, you still get somewhat a sporty feeling. So it isn't an executive sedan, but you also can drive it sporty. There's also the sports mode available that reduces the body roll. Here, this is an example. This works very well now also with the rear axle suspension. In sport mode, you hear the RPM is turned up a little bit more. But then again, here in the 7 Series, you definitely feel that the whole setup for the sound and exhaust and sportiness is not tuned all the way up as in other vehicles with the very same engine. So they set it here more on a subtle tone. It's not that loud. And I think that's also the strategy of, leaving this one here with more elegance and subtleness. I think it's also okay to go for this decision. In the sport mode, the air suspension is also a little bit stiffer if you rather prefer that. Even the stop signs are displayed in the head-up display. That's also a good one. Yeah, sometimes you just have a small acceleration here also when you are in rural surroundings, and then you can enjoy a little bit of this sound from the V8 engine. But again, I think it is nice to drive, and yes, it is more fun to drive than the smaller engines. However, you always have to think about, is it worth this higher consumption figure? And if you think about, just economic reasons and all ecological reasons, then I think it's not really worth. And also the extra price, the V8 is really higher in the price. If in this segment the price plays for you a role at all, that is of course also the question. But I mean, even if you earn some decent amount of money, surely you want to spend your money in a clever way or so, Let's also show you how this one goes as for the acceleration, when we have a little bit more open road now. There's also no one behind us now. Let's drive a little bit further. There's really no one is behind us. And when you just hammer it a little bit, you can see how this power plays out. That was already 80 kilometers an hour, just instantaneously. With the all-wheel drive, you get the power to the ground. RPMs get up a little bit more. So really cool what you have as for the acceleration right there. Most of the time you cannot really use it that well, but when you're able to use it, then you can floor it out to the max with this engine, and definitely with the all-wheel drive in combination. Well, did the facelift change much as for the driving experience? Not really. I mean, they took a look at some systems here and there, but the main changes are really as for the new emission standard, but that doesn't do any harm to the engine here. As for the power experience, infotainment system upgrade, of course, and the huge double kidney in the front, but driving-wise doesn't do so much. Well, the assistance systems, they have been upgraded as well. Here now, for example, a small hump with the air suspension, you hardly realize it. And you can set this assistance system, not only blind spot monitor is active all the time, you also have those assistance systems as for keeping the lane, for example. Doesn't really realize the red traffic light, you have to do that on your own, but it keeps you in the lane if you like that. And also when you're in the US, it has this lane changing system, so it automatically can change the lanes. It's not allowed in the EU anymore. So I'll set the cruise control once again. Let's see what does he in. Yeah, it automatically cancelled it in front of the roundabout here. So that's also interesting because it also watches the GPS data. So it's basically both what the sensors, cameras tell it, and also what the GPS input tells it. And it's primarily thought about to be, using it on the motorway, but here it already does work right there. Also some semi-autonomous driving function. You should keep your hand on the steering wheel all the time, just demonstration purposes right here. So, and after a while also would start complaining, but you can see here, it also keeps in the middle of the lane. It's quite proactive. It's not a system where you would run to the left or to the right, and now it complains to the left. That's another 7 Series right there. Seeing that? Feeling for his moderation, like a like a sheet of paper glued to the front windshield to be like able to read it while doing the moderation. Obviously just using one camera and not the other one facing to the front, so we cannot fake our moderation or just read it because I'm watched by 2 cameras at the same time. Classic live Autogefuehl, live on tape Autogefuehl viewing. So yeah, we give the most authentic experience. Also have some funny moments by that. Also, when some other traffic situations happen. So I'm really satisfied with the assistance systems, and I've been driving those also in the X5 and the X7 in the US. There they play their major role actually, because there, when you have those long, very straight highways, for example, through Texas, that was pretty amazing, because then you almost felt the car would be driving autonomously and you could do something else. But that's not there yet. Also regulations-wise, that's not what the regulations want from you at the moment. You should still pay all the attention. You're just a little bit more relaxed when you're using those systems. So again, a very relaxing and fine ride with the 7 Series, and among those sedans, even in the long wheelbase version, it still masters to somehow keep the core BMW brand identity and give you some agility. Power-wise, of course, you're also with the V8, but suspension, no matter if you go for the normal one, adaptive M suspension, for example, we have in other vehicles, and also sometimes the base and then optional there's the air suspension. Here in the 7 Series, always the air suspension, but no matter if it's normal adaptive one or an air suspension, it's always really great. Suspension is one of the things they do best with BMW. So, and even just cruising in the 7 Series is a lot of fun, both in the comfortable and also in a sporty way. And now we drive the hybrid, the plug-in hybrid, and as you can hear, you hear nothing. So this is also one of the biggest advantages. You just start silently and thinking of your neighborhood in the morning or so. That's pretty cool. You can also set the car in the menu up in a way that the electric only drive is always the standard at startup. It's not the real standard from Works, that would be the hybrid drive, but you can just change it in the menu, and I think I would definitely do that. So if I would go for the plug-in hybrid, I always want to start pure electric. It's good that they can set that up here in the system. They really also changed the driving modes. So the software side has also changed, not only that they moved from 4-cylinder to 6-cylinder for the plug-in hybrid and bigger battery, bigger range. So those driving modes have also been designed a little bit differently. Again, to me, the most important would be the pure electric driving mode. That's the one I'm in right now. And I have just this electric button right there. You can also configure some more stuff with it. Not going in depth on that now. Because that's, just the pure electric driving. If you lift your feet off the throttle, you feel that there's some slight recuperation. So the standard setup they went for there is not a very hard recuperation, just a slight one. And that's also pretty common for plug-in hybrid vehicles, because with the pure electric vehicles, you sometimes try to go for the maximum recuperation. Here with the plug-in hybrid vehicles, you sometimes want to find a compromise between recuperation and rolling. And if you would recuperate very hardly, sometimes you could even exceed the battery limit if you're going downhill all the way. So, and well, together with this air suspension, it feels pretty much normal, like a normal BMW 7 Series. The only thing that is somewhat restricted is, of course, the trunk in the height there. We've shown you that. And one option you cannot pick, that's the anti-tilt control, or the anti-rolling control. You can also go for the rear extra steering. It's just that this anti-tilt mechanism, there was no space for that anymore, since they put the battery there in the rear. So that's the only thing you cannot really choose. I think I can live with that, especially since they fine-tuned the suspension in a way that you don't feel a difference that much. So I mean, if you shake it here a little bit. Yeah, maybe it rolls a little bit more than we initially tested with the V8 today, which had the anti-tilt control. It will become more obvious when you are in higher speeds, of course. But still, I think not really something you have to, really think about. In Germany, for example, the plug-in hybrid will also be quite attractive here now, considering comparison also to the other versions, because we have this new law where you pay half of the money per month as taxes when you use your company car also for private purposes, and that's usually 1% of the list price per month you tax then, and that's now not 1% but 0.5% for plug-in hybrid vehicles and the battery vehicles. So that might be reason to go for the hybrid too. Other than that, I think the main reason would be this really silent ride, and it fits so much to this very calm vehicle with the great noise insulation and the very soft air suspension. So I think it's a great mix overall. And I also talked to the project leader of this car yesterday, and he told me that their goal is indeed this one, by the way, signaling me a stop sign, also in the head-up display, quite good function. Obviously the car was thinking that I would maybe surpass that without stopping. So the project leader said it was indeed the aim that the customers of this car use it all the way from the battery, deplete it, and then start with the combustion engine, and not the way that we sometimes hear those arguments that you use the hybrid mode only, that you use the electric drive as an assistant. And I actually do share this view there too. You do have a hybrid mode, yes, that's possible. So you can just pick it right there, and at the moment the engine did not suddenly start or so. So that's only happening when you really need the power. So when I'm just rolling slightly, also in this hybrid mode, the electric power is totally enough. And if you think about a lot of traffic situations, and also just the route I'm taking here now to the airport, you don't really need anything else than the electric drive as soon as you don't hammer the throttle. By the way, about hammering the throttle, there are also different philosophies about that. So let me go back to the electric mode. And you maybe remember the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. You could floor it out and it would stay in the electric mode if you have selected that. That is quite rare with electric vehicle, with the plug-in hybrid vehicles, because usually when you surpass a certain threshold, it goes back to the combustion engine mode to give you the boost. Porsche also says that, they argue that way. And also one argument is that they say it's a safety mechanism. So there might be a situation, for example like this, there's a vehicle coming, then for safety reasons I want to accelerate even harder to get on the motorway or something, or I want to maybe flee like from a truck that is coming quite close, with whatever reason, You can also understand this argument, yeah. However, I'm personally rather a friend of that when you are in the electric mode, you stay in the electric mode, even though when you floor it out. Because here, let me just turn the speed a little bit, you can, accelerate significantly, and you can also press the throttle a little bit further and you still stay in the electric mode, and it still gives you some decent acceleration, so that's totally fine. And only if you surpass this point where you feel it really in your foot, where there's some resistance in the throttle then, and then you would get to the combustion engine mode. So let me drop back just once more and show it to you. And now when I floor it out, took a while. Maybe you could pick it up. I mean, the engine is really silent in here. It's very well insulated from the cabin. But just then after, a second and a half, the combustion engine went on and then also gave me some additional power. And let's just see when we are in the hybrid mode, now also in way up, and now for example I did not have to floor it out. Already like quarter to halfway of the throttle input, the combustion engine set in. And that's all the things they tune with the software nowadays. I think it's good that you have the choice here as a driver, and sometimes those driving modes are really complicated. If you have like 5, 6, 7 different driving modes, like battery hold there, battery charge half, battery charge full, whatever. I think it's good when you have like this one EV mode and then the hybrid mode, and that's it. There are some more possibilities here. For example, this battery control mode. This is then that the battery loading is being kept that way, and the reason for that is you might think about you're on a motorway and you say, oh, I'm approaching this city where they have the new emissions law that you can only enter with electric vehicles. Let's just imagine that. Or I mean, London would be an example where already something like this is happening, where certain vehicles are more cost intensive than others to use. And you might say, you save the electric drive for later. That's not really the efficient way to do that, but that might be needed. Or you want to say, I don't want to wake up my neighbors. I'm going to go golfing with them tomorrow, so I don't want to have them hating on me. So you maybe pass their houses a little bit more silently. That would maybe be another argument. Or you don't like your neighbors and pass them very loudly on purpose. That might happen too. So now we're getting on the motorway, see how that one plays out when we drive a little bit faster. Let me just check if we are in the pure electric mode now once more. When I'm rolling down now, I can, indeed it's more using a little bit of the rolling than the recuperation. If you just want to roll, you slightly press the throttle. When they're going off, you see that the charging is working. I think that's actually a good compromise that they found right there. So we can also shift back the gears even if you are in electric mode. Interesting. So again, if you're just rolling, or for example setting the cruise control, that's totally fine. Here now, when it gets a little bit faster, we can also very well test again this assistance systems. Here again, keep your hands at the steering wheel all the time. That's not intended to do that like I do. Like this disclaimer. Professional driver, don't attempt. Might also apply to this one here. So, car is keeping me in the lane very well. Pretty flawless system. And again, if we would be in the US now, I could also set the turning indicator, and then the car would do the lane shift on its own. Again, should keep my hands at the steering wheel, but the car would actually, just do that itself. And I really don't miss the anti-tilt control here. I think when I have the rear axis steering, that's totally fine. I enjoy driving the plug-in hybrid, and when you then think about that it might even be cheaper to go for the plug-in hybrid, then of course really makes sense. Again, you should have this charging possibility at home. There was also a study that showed that a lot of plug-in hybrid vehicle users do not charge their vehicles. That's also depending from country to country how they handle that. And when you really want to go for that one here because you believe in the purpose of that and you want to do this, probably also have the infrastructure and do recharge. If you just buy it for governmental benefits and don't recharge, it doesn't make too much sense, neither for you nor for the environment. So if we can keep those emissions out of the cities locally, that's already something we all gain about. So that would be a good use case then when you use it for the everyday commuting, and maybe even also save some money with it. Other than that, this petrol engine, if we go to the sport mode, that's also possible. In the sport mode, then everything is used as a boost together. So then combustion engine is already running. I see it here at about 1,500 RPM. So it's basically waiting for my input. So the sport mode already activates the combustion engine. It says probably Thomas has some plans for acceleration or something. So everything is ready, and then the battery is used as an additional boost. And that's really working. If you just look at the acceleration figure, which is at 5.1 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour, that's really astonishing. So just think about the V8 is a second faster than this one here. So you could also go for this one for performance reasons. if you combine those ones. Remember that Porsche do their highest performance models now also with a hybrid to get, the additional electric boost as for this one. And here, if we use this boost together, let's also try it out. Back a little bit further and then, whoa. So that was just about like 50 to 80. Even in sport mode, the engine takes some time to kick in really. You can of course speed it up if you shift down yourself further a little bit more. So in comparison to other sport modes, it doesn't shift back so much on its own directly. So if you shift back manually, for example, the third gear, there we go. Then the engine is directly there. Other than that, it seems to be that their setup for the plug-in hybrid is that the sport mode does not shift so many gears directly on its own. So then it could be making sense if you just shift back on your own. Then the car is also fun in a sporty way. Actually also quite decent sound still. So again, the plug-in hybrid here shows that it's versatile in economical but also in sportive, progressive ways, so to say. Yeah, very interesting ride. Would I really go for it? I think it really depends on the price in your market and also on the benefits. If that's attractive, that would be one factor. Then again, I would go for it when I would have the charging possibility at home, yes. And with the less trunk, I mean, for serious luggage transporting, I would rather go, with an X5 or an X7 anyway. So if you decided to go for this sedan here, then I think you can also live with a little bit limited trunk space. Since we can go down this step as we've shown you, that's with a backpack upright in there, that's still something you can live within. So overall, this new plug-in hybrid system, I think very positive, and we hardly used some of this pure electric range there. It was very realistic how that went down. Not sure if you can really reach like 50, but like 45 or something, depending also on the terrain. Is really realistic. They stepped up the game there a little bit. Now I'm just want to go back to the pure electric driving mode. And what is the consumption of that engine? The engine itself, told you earlier, you can surely score alone on the combustion engine about 9 liters, 1 kilometers, about 20 mpg. And then it always depends on how extensively are you really using the electric drive. So we cannot generally say that's your fuel consumption. It might be 0 if you commute 20 kilometers every day or so. Yeah, to see about that. But overall, I think very interesting vehicle. It also makes the ride a little bit more interesting and calm at the same time. So I think this is definitely worth a shot taking a look at it. Not only for governmental fleets, they are also aiming for that to be like, this executive person who's always thinking a little bit about the environment. Yeah, you can argue about that, but this is also, one of the target group of this vehicle. What do you think? And now to our conclusion for today with the upgraded BMW 7 Series, the BMW 7er, as we say in Germany. The biggest change is, of course, the front double kidney, really in a big style. You can argue about that. I think when you see the car in reality here now, it doesn't look that massive as it would be just on the first pictures. So I think it does somehow fit to the vehicle. It's also their top of the lineup car, together now with the BMW X7 that also receives this huge double kidney. But also with other vehicles, we've seen very, very large front grills, so other also do that. It's not really necessary. You've also maybe seen in the front, there's also the adaptive air intake, so sometimes the whole double kidney is closed and just, when the air cooling is really needed, then it opens. Other than that, on the exterior, not so many changes. On the interior, the biggest change is the infotainment upgrade, that you get the newest version of this infotainment system, and also with the digital voice assistant. It's really helpful to have that one. That would be, probably the biggest upgrade for you if you're already owning a current generation 7 Series. Other than that, of course, pretty comfortable in the interior. The package, again, is not that good. So you could have more space considering the length of the vehicle. But since this is especially the long wheelbase version and also standard 7 Series in the US, of course, you still have ample of space left. You have to decide about that. The only thing they lack is more animal-friendly materials in the interior. As for driving, the V8 is sure a pleasure to drive, but the consumption is very high. The new plug-in hybrid would be an alternative. I think the 3-liter 6-cylinder is also a little bit more fitting. It's more right sizing also together here for this size of the vehicle together with the plug-in hybrid, and it's also a pretty good engine overall. Interesting with the new added range. So this could be an alternative for someone who has the charging possibility at home or at work or both and can do the daily commuting than pure electric. And also if you don't need so much trunk space because the plug-in hybrid definitely limits the height there in the trunk. So, what do you think? Of course, especially for European customers, the diesel is still very interesting because it's a very efficient one, especially here with the BMWs and really low than in consumption. That could also play a role if you're especially traveling long ways with that vehicles. So, what do you think? Let's discuss the new 7 Series right there here on Autogefuehl. And please also tune in next time.